A really good example of what I just talked about is Jill Andrew in Toronto St. Paul. Hey, Jill, I voted for you in 2022, even though you blocked me on Twitter for essentially just asking you why the NDP didn't commit to bringing back the UBI project or doubling ODSP or an OW. And that was in 2022, but I still voted for you. But now, congratulations, because you are the perfect case study in how the Ontario NDP would rather lose elections with dignity rather than win them under conditions that they don't personally control. You didn't lose your seat because of some ideological shift or because the voters suddenly rejected you for being too progressive or not progressive enough. You lost it because your party still treats voters as some abstract force to be managed, not a coalition of actual human beings with material concerns, strategic calculations, and the ability to act in their own collective interest, even when the party refuses to do so. The Ontario NDP, like every provincial wing of the party, has spent decades defining itself primarily in opposition to the Liberals, which is understandable when you consider the history of the two parties. When the Liberals exist to launder corporate governance through the language of progress, while the NDP occasionally remembers that it was supposed to exist to fight that. But that's ancient history now, because today, both parties are mostly just different brands occupying adjacent shelves at the same neoliberal centrist political supermarket. What they aren't, and what the NDP flat out refuses to become, is anything resembling a functioning anti-conservative coalition. And with that, Jill, you lost your seat, not because the voters didn't want you, but because enough of them understood something that the NDP refused to do, and that was under the first past the post system. The only way to beat the Conservatives was for every non-conservative voter to act like they're already in a coalition, even if the parties won't say it out loud. And that's why you lost your seat. You lost your seat because strategic voting told people that the Liberal was the better candidate, had the better chance, and that's why you lost. It's because of that strategic voting. And if you guys endorsed a coalition, you probably would have been able to hold your seat because you're the incumbent. You've won. You won numerous times. You probably could have managed to negotiate yourself holding that seat because you're the incumbent. And again, it's not like this is some niche debate. This is a defining feature of Canadian politics over the last 20 years. Every election, the Liberals and the NDP split the anti-conservative vote in half, and every election, they both act shocked when the Conservatives manage to form government with just like 18% of eligible voters. The difference is that the Liberals at least understand that they benefit from this dynamic. They market themselves as the only strategic option, the only ones who can stop the Conservatives. And it's a grift, obviously, but it's a grift that works. As for the NDP, their position is far more pathetic. They completely refuse to participate in strategic voting. They actively refuse to even acknowledge that the logic exists. It's happened with individual candidates in this race, but not at all like from a party perspective. And if it was coordinated from a party perspective, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And that's the problem, is that the NDP, they pretend that every election is a fresh start, a blank slate, where voters will have to essentially just come to their senses and vote for the right policies. They talk about earning every vote like they're running a fucking lemonade stand, not trying to win power in a structurally rigged system. And that's the thing, is because they refuse to even entertain the idea that voters might have their own strategic interests. They act like they're completely blindsided when the ridings, like yours, Jill, flips to Liberal, even when everyone with a working brain managed to see it coming. So here's the truth. Voters in your riding really didn't want a Liberal. They wanted someone who could actually beat the Conservative. And the NDP, through its performative purity and refusal to deal with the actual political reality they were facing, made it clear that it would rather lose than make that possible. Voters just filled in the blank. The Ontario NDP would rather be the party of permanent opposition than risk getting its hands dirty with actual power. They would rather be right and lose than compromise and win. And that attitude is exactly why Doug Ford is still in power, why Andrea Horwath never came close to forming government, and why ridings like yours, Jill, will keep flipping back and forth between parties who are at least willing to acknowledge that voters exist in a strategic reality, not just an ideological one. And in a better world, this wouldn't matter. In a better world, the NDP could run on a principle ideology, win a majority, and do everything it claims to believe in. But we don't live in that world. We live in this one. And this one is a world where the NDP is so committed to their aesthetics of opposition that they would rather lose every seat in the province than admit that sometimes you have to work with the people you don't like to beat the people that want to kill you. And so, Jill, you didn't lose to the Liberals. You lost to your own party's pride.